Om Sri Gurubhyo Namaha.
Homam has a very special place in Sanatanadharma. It is a unique concept and it is considered as one of the biggest pride of our Vedic culture and heritage. But how much do we know about Homam? Do we understand why we are offering items into fire? What is actually happening? How should we prepare for a Homam? Do we know that there are 3 different types of Homam? And there is actually a Homam that we are performing every day, multiple times.
In this video, let us understand each of these things one by one. It might take a little time, but stay with me. Once we understand, let us pass on this knowledge to the others.
As recipients of Sanatana Dharma, it is our duty and one of the most beautiful and important things to learn about. First, let us look at the Homam, the fire-based ritual that we are all very familiar with. The Homam that we see that is performed during the Pujas. This Homam is performed using Bhuta Agni, which is the elemental fire, the fire that we can see, the fire that we can sense with our organs. This ritual itself is classified into several types based on the duration. If you perform this for around 1 to 2 hours, it is called a Ishti. If you perform it for a day, it is called a Homam. If it is for 3 or 5 or 11 days and so on, it is called a Yajna. If it is performed for 1 or 2 months, it is called a Mahayagam. If the ritual goes on for 6 months to a year, it is called a Advaram. And Satram is the one where it is performed for multiple years, 50, 100 and even 500 years and so on. In other words, most of the Homams we perform at our home during Gruha Pravesha etc. are actually Ishtis. And rarely we see Homams which are conducted for an entire day.
For the purpose of this video, we are going to refer to all of these things as Homam itself, because that is what we have been used to in the society.
What is the basic action that is happening in a Homam? It is nothing but we are offering some objects into fire, right? See, we live in a physical world that is governed by mass, gravity, physical bodies, laws of our nature and so on. But the Devatas, that is the energy behind several aspects that govern the universe, those Devatas, they don't live in this physical world. They live in a different realm where there is no physical body. The only connection between our existence and that realm is through our consciousness embedded in a certain direction, almost like an idea but much more subtler than an idea. This translation happens via mantra. When we utter a mantra, a new meaning is getting embedded into the physical object that we are offering to the Homam fire. Listen to this carefully. When we utter a mantra, a new meaning is getting embedded into that object.
The rishis have selected specific objects to be offered in such a way that they are compatible with the idea that is being induced using the mantra.
When this is offered, then that subtle idea form is reaching the Devatas. Let us look at it more closely. And to understand this, we should look at the different parts, the different aspects of the Homam. First, let us look at the shape of the altar. It is also called as Vedi.
That is playing a significant role in determining the type of the Homam, because each shape is able to create and symbolize different energies and different intentions.
There are many shapes of these Vedis, but we are listing a few on the screen. So as you can see, Trikona, Shatkona, Altachandra, Sarvatobhadra, Padma, Ashtadala, Swastika and so on. These are all the different types of altars or Vedis used in Homams. These are the 2-dimensional or the flat altars.
You might be surprised, and many of us don't know this, but there are also 3D shaped altars.
And these are called Chitis. So the typical Homams that we see, they are constructed using bricks on the floor and they don't have too much of height, which is what we are calling as 2D. But 3-dimensional altars or Chitis are constructed with massive height and they look like a complete shape. Garuda Chiti, for example, is an altar that is constructed that looks like Swami Garuda. Similarly, you have Kurma Chiti, which is a tortoise-shaped altar. You have Hamsa Chiti, Simha Chiti, Makara Chiti, Chakrachiti, and so on. Some of these have been listed on the screen. These three-dimensional chitis are constructed using bricks, mud and stone. Their dimensions and proportions are strictly governed by the Vedic scriptures. The materials, the shape, the placement, everything is chosen carefully depending on the purpose of the yajna or the devata that is being invoked. These elaborate structures take days and weeks to build and require a high level of expertise.
Each shape connects to specific cosmic principles, making the altar itself like a microcosm of the universe. These kind of structures completely amplify the spiritual potential of the homams.
After we looked at the Vedi and the Chiti, let us now look at the fire. There are three types of fires that are used in these Vedic rituals, and these are called Tritagni. The first one is Garhapatya Agni. This is permanently maintained in homes. The second one is called Avaniya Agni. This is used for offering to deities or devatas. The third one is Dakshina Agni. This is for ancestors or Pitrukarmas. So this Garhapati Agni, in olden days what used to happen is every household who is following Sanatanadharma used to continuously maintain this Garhapatya Agni. When the Grihastha starts, at that moment during Vivaham, this Garhapatya Agni is ignited and it is never extinguished ever. It is used every day for performing the Homam, and this fire is actually used to ignite the other two Homams and the other two Agnis, which is the Avaniya Agni and the Dakshina Agni. So if you want to do a Homam for Devatas, you have to use the Garhapatya Agni, which has already been ignited in the household and is running for years and years. Similarly, if you want to use Homam for Pitru Devatas, again you have to take the fire from the Garhapatya Agni.
So that used to be the mechanism that people used to follow. First, we've looked at the Vedi or the Chiti. Second, we've looked at the fire or the Agni. Now, let us look at the Yajamani or the doer.
Depending on the size of the Vedi or the Chiti and the duration of the yaga, etc., there are different dietary restrictions imposed on the doer. Complex yagas with chitis that run for multiple days require the Yajamani and the wife to survive only on certain food items like cow milk, etc. For typical homams and ishtis that we perform, fasting is sometimes advised, or sattvic food is advised for at least 48 hours before the homam starts. Then let us look at the wood sticks, the samidhalu, that are burned during the homam. As far as these samidhalu are concerned, there is something called as panchapalvas, 5 different types of wood that is typically used during homas. You can see the list on the screen: peepal tree, banyan tree, sandalwood tree, mango tree and neem tree. These are the 5 that are typically used.
Now, here is where we need to clearly understand something very, very important, and this is where science completely doesn't get it yet. But more importantly, we must understand it and be able to look at it in a very balanced manner.
Homam fire, the smoke that is produced during this, is not looked as smoke in a conventional sense. Conventionally, smoke carries dust particles and that particulate matter is released to the atmosphere, which is in a way causing pollution. But the Homam fire is actually a combination of medicinal and aromatic vapors. By selecting herbs, Ayurvedic herbs, and by selecting specific types of wood, when that is combusted in fire in a certain rate, then the vapor that comes out is actually good for health and it is actually good for the atmosphere. The constant usage of ghee during this procedure keeps all the soot down, so the typical dust particles that rise up do not rise, and what rises up is actually Ayurvedic, medicinal and aromatic.
This clear understanding is very important. So as we can see, everything matters.
The size of the Vedi or the Chiti, the geometry, the configuration, the type of the fire, the combustion rate of the fire, what you are offering, the physical condition of the Yajamani, everything.
There are multiple permutations and combinations, and using all these Each of them can address different types of problems.
Some are at a personal level, some are at a family level, some are at a family lineage level. There are homams that can address problems at a town level, country level, and overall well-being of the universe as well, and so on. So this is not an ordinary fire ritual. Coming back, when we are performing this ritual, we are offering an idea embedded through a physical object. When that right object burns in the right fire, performed in the right Vedi and Chiti, in the right rate of combustion, then that idea is received by the Devata in this very, very subtle process. In turn, the Devata or the energy force responds by favorably arranging certain aspect of energy for the doer. The samidalu or the sticks must be dried and they should not be taken by harming the trees. Rather, sticks that have already fallen away from trees, which are already no longer continuously growing, they are almost now kind of dried away. Those are the sticks that you should use. The ghee has to be absolutely pure. Every single material that is offered into the fire has to be absolutely pure. Otherwise, you are inhaling smoke which is dangerous. And the fire itself has to be ignited in a certain way by people who are aware of the Shastras. Because we do not have the Garhapati Agni in all of our houses, or at least it is very, very rare, we need people who can now ignite the fire in a certain way.
With this, we have covered the first type of homam, which we are all familiar with, which we keep referring to as homam, and we see it performed in temples and during various pujas. Now let us look at the second type of homam, a homam that we all perform every single day, but perhaps some of us are not aware of it.
To understand this, we must look at the second form of Agni, that is called the Udara Agni, or as science calls it, the fire of digestion. Udara Agni itself has three types of Agni as per the Rishi Darshana. One is called the Jatar Agni, which determines the production of hydrochloric acid in the stomach. Then there is Bhuta Agni, that determines the production of bile in the liver. And third one is the Kloma Agni, which determines the production of sugar digesting enzymes. Apart from food, even Upavasa or fasting is considered as an offering to Udaragni. How beautiful is that thought? In other words, the food that we eat, which elders used to call it as Devata Archana, so aptly, that is a homam by itself. Eating food is as good as performing a homam. What we offer to Udaragni, therefore, has to be taken a lot of care. Purity, sanctity of what we are eating and so on is very important. In today's day and age, where ordering food, eating outside food has become so prevalent.
How do we consume food staying as close as possible to this dharma of having food as a homam? This is a whole new subject by itself. How to have a meal, when to have it, when to not have it, how much should be the gap. We should perhaps look at this as a separate video, but for now, the realization that having a meal too is a homam as part of the Rishi Darshana is something that we will carry along with us for the rest of our life. Now we are coming to the final part of the video.
And we are looking at the third type of the homam. This is the most important aspect of this video. The third type of homam has a direct connection with the first type. In other words,
if we don't understand this third type of homam, doing the first homam, which is the homam performed during the puja, may not really have the intended result for us.
To understand this third type of homam, we need to look at the third and the final type of Agni, which is called the Chit Agni. Chit Agni is the fire of the mind. Here, the rishis are referring to the electric signals that are firing in our mind. Those are governing our thoughts and actions. This homam using the Chit Agni has to be performed using the manas. Let's look at this. In the regular homam, what do we offer? Ghee, right? What is ghee? Ghee is the final form of milk. Milk becomes curd, then butter. Butter is heated in a certain way, and the final form that emerges is ghee. Ghee is the final form. Similarly, when you perform this third type of homam, you need to offer the final version of you. Remove your name, remove your body, remove your attachments, your thoughts, your relationships, everything. Offer the final you. Then what happens? Just like in the homam that we perform in pujas, the ghee that we offer also transforms. After everything evaporates away, everything is gone, something permanent remains, and that is the bhasmam or the ash. Similarly, when we perform the Chit Agni, what is permanent and never changes, that is the only thing that remains, and that is the Atmanubhuti. See, fire reduces everything that comes to contact with it into ash. Similarly, the internal fire of Jnanam that burns inside us, that will reduce everything into the final underlying divinity inside all of us. Once that happens, the mind is filled with peace and bliss. At the end of this Chit Agni Homam process, we remove all our baggages and reach to the depths of our experience and realize that we are the Brahman.
Just like fasting is a beautiful offering to the Udaragni, similarly our Chitagni has some beautiful offerings and byproducts.
One is the Krodhagni, which is the fire of anger, for which we need to give an introspective and voluntary offering of forgiveness. Similarly, there is a Kamagni, which is the fire of passion and desire. For this, you need to give the introspective and voluntary offering of detachment. By doing all this, you are actually reaching Atmanubhuti.
This is all great. Symbolically, we have understood the relationship between the homam that is happening outside and the one that we can see with our eyes, and the homam that is supposed to be happening inside of us.
But how do we get there? Why is the homam outside still very important, and how can it help us perform this internal homam that we all need to do using Chitagni? The Bhutagni Homam that we saw is actually going to help us perform this inside homam using the Chitagni or the Tapoagni. How? Look at this carefully. Homam performed outside has a connection with Japam. Japa, uttering of the same mantra, is done thousands of times before the homam and several hundreds of times during the homam. Now our mind is actually the bridge between ourselves and the universe. With practice, the mind can be trained to access any realm of existence. It is like tuning the radio to a certain channel to listen to the song. We are all generally tuned into our physical realm, right? When this mantra is chanted repeatedly and you are listening to it keenly during the homam, you are keeping the mind busy with this activity. And after a while, if you keep at it, the mind slowly starts loosening up the identification with the physical realm. This creates a certain kind of vacuum in the mind, and this vacuum is filled by the mantra and the Devata Shakti. In other words, the mind lets go of itself and starts to resonate with the mantra. In this situation, the external fire, the Bhutagni, that has been started in a pure way and is being conducted as per the Vedic rituals, starts to come into resonance with the internal fires, which is the Chittagni and the Udaragni. And these internal fires are also starting to get repaired. This leads to improvement of concentration, mental focus, health and peace. In other words, the external homa that we are conducting, if we condition our mind and stay in resonance with the mantra, it will actually fast track the internal burning of impurities in one's consciousness, and it accelerates internal transformation. So if we look at it, to beat obstacles that are in our life, to get rid of our worries, to get the ethical dharmic wishes that we want, homam. For health, for the right way to eat food, homam. For inner transformation, homam. And ultimately for jnana and moksha, homam. This is the reason why homam and yajnam were considered so revered in Sanatanadharma. We can offer to devatas using any of the Panchabhutas, but because of the connection with Chittagni and Udaragni, fire is preferred because it makes our experience and journey a little more easier.
When we perform the homam the next time, or when you are a part of it, try to get the right person to conduct it as much as possible. Try to get the absolute right samagri with purity, not harming the trees, etc. And more importantly, keep this video handy. watch them and let us condition our mind.
Those 2-3 hours during the Homam, try to come into resonance, and you will see it is almost like you walk into a divine fire and you come out on the other side completely transformed.
What can we give the rishis who have just given us this treasure and sampada just like that? Just because it is available so easily, let us not take it for granted. We bow down to the rishis and the Veda Parampara and the Veda Patashalas who are making it possible for us to perform the same Homam in the exact same way even today.
Let us perform the Homams in the right way. Let us share this knowledge with everyone. Let us talk about this with our children and fellow loved ones. One last thing before you leave. A lot of you might still have this doubt. When we are offering those items with the idea embedded into the fire, how are the devatas receiving it in the other realm? How is this happening?
This can actually be explained in some ways using quantum physics. This way of performing the Homam to just get the granted wishes from devatas also has some possible side effects if not done right with the right intentions. We'll attempt to make a separate video for this, but until then, Om Sri Gurubhyo Namaha.